Joan Rivers' whole career was ruined by one business deal. She left for a new show on Fox in 1986. Her boss thought she had crossed him and banned her for life. TV stations wouldn't show her show. Famous people wouldn't come. After a few months, Fox fired her. 3 months later, her husband killed himself, which was another terrible event. Even when things were at their worst, fake interviews made fun of her pain. This is the story of Joan Rivers and how Hollywood shut her down for breaking the rules. Joan Rivers' real name is Joan Alexandra Malinsky. She was born in Brooklyn, New York on June 8, 1933. Her parents came to the United States from Russia. Her father, Dr. Meyer Malinsky, was a well-known and funny doctor. Joan grew up in a Jewish home with her older sister. They lived in Doctors Row, a quiet part of Brooklyn. Kids could ride their bikes anywhere, and everyone there knew each other. Though Joan felt safe and at ease in Brooklyn, she always longed for something bigger. New York City seemed like a magical place to her, and she couldn't wait to leave Brooklyn and become famous. Joan's car got there early. She sent MGM Studios a framed picture of herself when she was only 8 years old to try to get their attention. She was different, even from the kids in the first grade. On her report card they wrote that she was very interested in acting and felt very driven to do well. They also said she talked too much, which would become famous for her. Joan fell in love with plays as she got older. When she was 16, she became vice president of her high school's acting club. Her sharp sense of humor and strong drive to make it big came from the world she grew up in and the fact that her family was an immigrant. Joan went to Connecticut College for her first year of college after high school, but soon switched to Barnard College in New York City. She had hard classes and acted in student shows while she was there. She put a lot of effort into everything she did, and in 1954 she finished with honors from college with degrees in English literature and anthropology. Joan loved acting, but she didn't become a VMore right after college. He got a job as a buyer for a chain of stores and married the son of the store's owner. But they were only married for 6 months, and Joan quickly decided that she didn't want a normal life. She still really wanted to act, and she knew she had to try again. Before Joan Rivers became the brave and sassy performer everyone knows, her name was Joan Malinsky, and she was just a young woman in New York trying to make it. The year was 1958, and she was 25 years old. To pay her bills, she worked several jobs. She gave tours at Rockefeller Center, wrote and proofread for an advertising firm, and helped people at Bond clothing shops. When her publicist Tony Rivers told her she needed a stage name, things began to change in her life. I quickly picked Joan Rivers because I thought it sounded more interesting. Later she said that having a stage name helped her act in rough nightclubs. She once said Joan Rivers was like a party dress I put on. She was still Joan Malinsky inside, scared, confused, and not sure what to do. She would always remember the difference between the brave comic on stage and the shy woman behind the scenes. For all of her days. At first, everything about show business seemed to turn her off. Even though she graduated from Barnard College in 1954, she quickly gave up on her hopes of becoming a major actress. It was a terrible first time for her on The Tonight Show when Jack Paar was the host. Many people told her it was a bad idea and hurt her career. Joan had a hard life after that for 7 long years. In New York City, she would take the train from Larchmont and get her picture taken in cheap photo booths. She would then sit at Howard Johnson and read theater ads for hours on end. In 1965, she was only 31, but the business was already calling her washed up. At the same time, young comics like George Carlin, Woody Allen, and Richard Pryor were getting lucky. Was forced to play in small places where no one cared. She was already going through a hard time because her first marriage ended badly. Joan was different because she didn't give up, even when all the doors shut on her. She did all of this before she really found her voice as a comedian. Joan didn't know what kind of comic she wanted to be at first. She did everything she could to get on stage. In some shows she went by the name Pepper January and told jokes she had seen on TV. In her first real job for money, she worked in a Boston strip club with kids and bored adults. It wasn't exciting at all. The club owners also didn't think she was very interesting. Fred Weintraub, who ran the famous Bitter End, remembered that the audience didn't respond when he gave her a few tries. So she could do better with other people. He put her in a small comedy group called Jim, Jake, and Joan. But that quickly fell apart. It wasn't easy for her even when she got the chance to play at the Duplex, a small cabaret. The club owner told her to stop singing and just talk to the people in the room when she first started to sing funny songs. Her ambition got in the way of her improvisation at Chicago's Second City around 1961. The male players there didn't like her. They didn't want her to make people laugh, but she also didn't want to back off. It was a tough and competitive place. But Joan felt it helped her get better at time. She needs to get tougher and start building the fast, bold style that would boost her fame one day. It had taken Joan Rivers years of hard work to make it big. She tried out 7 times over the course of 3 years, but nothing happened each time. When she was 31, many people in the business thought she had missed her chance. They said she was clean, but on February 17, 1965, everything changed. She finally got another chance to be on Johnny Carson's The Tonight Show. She bombed the last time her host was Jack Paar, but this time it felt different. Carson not only let her perform, but he also asked her to sit down next to him. Back then that was a big deal. Johnny Carson told her in front of millions of people, "You're going to be a star." That moment turned her whole world upside down. At once reviewers liked her a lot. Time magazine said she was funny about everything and compared her to Woody Allen. But she kept her own style. In just a few weeks, Joan Rivers went from having a hard time to being one of the most sought-after comics in the US. She got booked on bigger shows and hired as a writer for The Tonight Show. It felt like the door had finally swung wide open for the first time. Rivers kept going back to The Tonight Show over the years. It wasn't like she was just another guest. By September 1983, NBC had proven it. Joan Rivers became a regular guest host on Johnny Carson's show. The spot with other comics before, but she had done it almost 100 times by this point, so no one could beat her. She hosted the show 190 times before she quit in 1986. In the end, Joan would say it straight out. It was said that NBC would never let a woman host full-time because she wasn't a threat to Johnny. But she broke down a barrier that few women had even dared to touch, and she made history again. In July 1984, when she was the host of The Tonight Show's first ever stereo show. Plus, only one station in New York could play it in stereo. It was a big step forward though. It was Joan's time to shine on TV, and she was also making waves in Las Vegas. She worked on the Strip for 43 years. Which is crazy. She joked all the time that she was the Strip slut because she would work for anyone. She was making fun, but she was also doing something new. In 1969, her first show in Las Vegas was at the Riviera with John Davidson. The show she did at Caesar's Palace in 1972, though, really put her on the map. Joan wasn't like the women who came before her. She didn't want to look silly just to make people laugh. She wanted to look fancy and was proud to say, "I was the first one to tell you to look good." She has shared the stage with famous people like Diana Ross and Anne Margaret over the years. That was unheard of for a woman to be a stand-up comic back then. Along with the Smothers Brothers and Gary Shandling, she kept shining at Caesars from 1983 to 1991. She kept coming back, even when she wasn't playing often. Her last shows were at the Venetian in 2012. She showed she wasn't just a stand-up comedian just 3 years after her big break on The Tonight Show. In 1968, she started her own talk show during the day called That Show with Joan Rivers. Each show had its own main idea. To start, she would make jokes about the subject. Then she would have a famous person and an expert talk about it. The first person she had on was Johnny Carson himself. After that came big names like Jerry Lewis, Don Rickles, and Joel Grey. Even though it was only on for 2 years, other talk shows would follow its lead for decades. As early as the 1970s, Joan was one of the first women to run her own show, breaking new ground and making it acceptable. Then there was the term that would always be a part of American culture. May I talk? In the 1980s, it began in Las Vegas. A mean joke was made by Joan about how much Elizabeth Taylor weighs. When people in the room gasped, she stopped and asked, "Can we talk here?" It was great. People felt like they were in on a private chat when they heard those 3 simple words. That line said it all about her style. Joan didn't want to give a speech. She wanted you to laugh with her, like you were old friends telling each other jokes. People still remember those words even though she died in 2014. Rabbi Sarah Schendelman said that Joan left behind more than just jokes. It was how she got along with other people. May I talk? It wasn't just a line. It told people to be honest, laugh at life, and do those things without fear. Joan Rivers made a choice in early 1986 that would change her life forever. She was taking over for Johnny Carson on The Tonight Show about 100 times a year at the time. People thought she would take over after him, but something sneaky was going on behind the scenes. Joan got her own late-night talk show from Barry Diller, the new boss at the young Fox network. This was something that had never been done for a woman before. It was a chance to do something historic. Carson was the only one who knew about the talks. She was afraid that if he found out, he would stop her. Joan tried to call Carson the weekend before the deal went public. She said she tried to call him 8 times but couldn't. It was too late when the news finally got out. It hurt Carson to be stabbed in the back. The man who had once been proud to show her around America now thought she was a traitor. They hadn't talked to each other in 23 years because of that one event. The deal with Fox was very big. Joan made a deal worth $10 million over 3 years, which is even more now. There was also another part of the deal. Fox decided to hire Edgar Rosenberg, her husband, as the show's producer even though he hadn't done it before. Joan was unable to refuse. She thought that by signing the papers, she was about to start a bigger life. It was a big deal when Joan Rivers started The Late Show on October 9, 1986. She was the first woman to host a talk show on a late-night network. Fox promised her a lot and gave her a $10 million budget. They wanted her show to go up against The Tonight Show with Johnny Carson. Carson wasn't going to help though. He put people on a blacklist after they went on Joan's show, which made it nearly impossible for her to book big stars. Some TV stations, like one near Carson's hometown, wouldn't even show her show because they were loyal to him. Some turned it down because they didn't like her style. Fox wanted to make everyone happy, so they let affiliates choose not to watch the show. That choice cut its spread in half. In the next few months, the numbers fell sharply. What began as a big event in TV history quickly went downhill. Fox used to think of Joan as their main jewel, but now they wanted to get rid of her. Things were even worse behind the scenes. Edgar Rosenberg, Joan's husband, was in charge of making the show. Fox agreed to it at first, but when the numbers went down they blamed him. For Joan to stay, they told her she had to fire Edgar. Joan said no. Fox fired them both on May 15, 1987. The last show got out of hand. There was shaving cream, toilet paper and slime all over the set. Joan had crazy guests like Howie Mandel, Pee Wee Herman, and a young Chris Rock. Even her stage manager came dressed as a crazy version of herself. It was like seeing someone fight until the end to watch that last show, even though they already lost. She later said it felt like they had put an end to her work in public. Tragic events happened again just 91 days after they were fired. A hotel room in Philadelphia was found empty and dead on August 14, 1987. He had taken too much Valium, which killed him. He called Joan the day before and said he would be home soon. But he was having a hard time behind those words. Edgar never fully got better after having a major heart attack in 1984. His friends and family said he looked more and more broken even though he had tried to fix his problems. During his trip to Ireland, he got even worse and started bleeding inside. He was just a shadow when he died. What he was before. After he died, Joan looked into their accounts and found another nightmare. Edgar had messed up their money so badly that she owed $37 million. After 8 months, Joan finally admitted that she almost killed herself. It was a very sad moment. She said that her little dog Spike jumped into her lap while she was sitting with a gun in her hand. That brief moment of love kept her alive. The world wasn't done being mean though. GQ magazine put out a fake interview with Joan while she was still sad. It showed her making mean jokes about Edgar's death, like making a sick joke about the Rosenbergs, who were put to death for spying. The so-called reporter was a man named Ben Stein, who used to write speeches but had never met Joan. He made everything up. Joan fought back even though she had already lost and been shamed. Stein and GQ were sued for libel. She won a deal against all odds and gave the whole amount to charity. But the harm she did to her soul was done. Later she said that Hollywood made her feel like a nobody. She was ignored and made fun of when her life was at its worst. Joan Rivers came back stronger than anyone thought she would after losing almost everything. She started the Joan Rivers Show in 1989. It wasn't just another talk show, it was how she rose from the ashes. She had been fired from her Fox late-night show a few years before. Edgar Rosenberg, her husband, killed himself not long after that. Los Angeles turned away from her, was on a ban. Some people didn't want to work with Joan, but she didn't quit. With a syndicated afternoon show that debuted on September 5, 1989, she fought her way back. Through her company, PGHM Productions, which worked with Tribune Entertainment, she made it herself. After Paramount helped with the first season, Tribune took care of everything. There were more than 1,000 episodes of the show, which made it a big part of early 1990s TV. You couldn't even find shows for years. But in 2019, they finally started showing old episodes again. And by 2021, you could watch some episodes. Joan did what she did best for a whole new group of people. Being brave and funny, and not afraid. Joan had one of the most moving performances of her career in 1990, only 3 years after her whole world fell apart. She got an Emmy for Best Talk Show Host during the day. She stood on stage with tears in her eyes, even though her own talk show wasn't even up for Best Talk Show that night. She said, "I lost my job 2 years ago, and my income went down." After giving the award, she told everyone in the room that it was really for her late husband Edgar. "He started out with me." It wasn't just a trophy for Joan. It showed she could handle anything. Carson even kicked her off The Tonight Show after she moved to Fox. That night, it didn't matter that the rule had been in place for decades, and had only been lifted when Jimmy Fallon took over years later. Joan had won her battle. Joan stayed in the public eye in other ways while she worked to rebuild her career. She got a great spot in the middle square on Hollywood Squares, and her quick wit made everyone laugh. She also did one of her most famous shows around the same time without even showing her face. In 1987, when her late-night show was still having trouble, she did the voice of the robot Dot Matrix in Mel Brooks's movie Spaceballs. It was a crazy and funny take on Star Wars, and Joan's acting as her character made it stand out. Even though Spaceballs didn't do very well at the box office at first, it became a cult favorite over time. She was able to laugh at herself in the movie, and stay a part of pop culture even when everything else began to fall apart. Joan did more than just watch TV and movies though. She did something risky in 1994. The play she co-wrote and starred in was called Sally Marr and Her Guards. It was based on the story of Lenny Bruce's mother, who raised one of the most famous comedians of all time. Not every critic agreed on everything about the play, but most of them did agree on one thing. Joan did a great job playing. Some people said she was interesting. Some people said she was bold. She was nominated for both a Tony Award and a Drama Desk Award for her work in the play, which only ran for 50 performances. In the same year, she also appeared in Tears and Laughter with her daughter Melissa. A TV show called The Joan and Melissa Rivers Story tells the story of how they got through life after Edgar died. Joan showed the world she wasn't just a comedian by turning her own sadness into art. She was strong and could turn pain into something amazing. Joan Rivers did a lot more than walk red carpets. She made them different for good. In 1996, when she took over as host of EUS Live from the red carpet, it was no longer just about watching famous people arrive, it turned into theater. Star was asked, "Who are you wearing?" People made fun of her at first. Even the New York Times told her she was wrong for using bad language. Joan didn't care though. She shot back that they were wrong, and that time had shown her to be right. Joan came up with a new way to talk to stars with her daughter Melissa by her side. It felt like a real chat instead of a dull interview. So many people watched it that in 2005 TV Guide Channel offered her $8 million to leave E! Joan made a new rule. If you walked the red line, everyone could see what you were wearing. In 2010, E! Asked Joan to be on a show called Fashion Police, but she didn't want to do it. Even though she thought it was stupid and beneath her, she took the job, and a huge number of people from all over the world watched every week to hear what she had to say. Joan didn't hold back. She made fun of everyone, from Lena Dunham's naked photos to Michelle Obama's clothes. She even called Michelle a tyrant, which got her a lot of flack. Younger stars like Jennifer Lawrence didn't like the show because they thought it supported bullying. CNN said Joan was mean, but Joan didn't back down. She walked out of the interview in a rage, saying that she had only said what everyone inside was thinking. Joan didn't care if people didn't like her hair. PETA was very angry that she wore fur with pride for many years. Someone put red paint on her sable coat in 1997. PETA said they weren't responsible, but Joan didn't believe them. While she worked with them, she did things like record a funny veggie Passover message. Melissa, her daughter, even posed for an ad that said people should go naked rather than wear fur. The fight reached its peak in 2014, when PETA protesters stopped an event for her book. Joan tried to cool them down at first, but then she lost it and yelled that the furs were going to the opera instead of being left to rot in the cellar. Joan never said she was sorry for her jokes, even when people were mad at her. She told a joke about Germans and the Holocaust to the fashion cops in 2013. Some groups, like the Anti-Defamation League, were very angry, but Joan didn't back down. She told people that her family had been hurt in Auschwitz, and that she used humor to bring attention to the terrible events. She joked on the Today Show in 2014 that kidnapped people had more room than she did living with her daughter. The victims wanted someone to say sorry. Joan said no. She told everyone to calm down because it was just a joke. That's just how she was. Joan got death threats for her jokes over the years, but she never stopped. In 1973, she had to be watched by off-duty cops in Miami after making fun of Polish people during a show. The death threats came back in 2014, when she spoke out in support of Israel during the Gaza war. Friends said there were so many that Joan had to hire a guardian. But Joan stayed true to herself even as the threats got worse. That was how she felt about all the jokes she told, and she didn't change her mind until the end. Joan won the Celebrity Apprentice in 2009, even though she was 75 years old. Trump still chose Joan even though Annie Duke, her opponent, raised more money, because she did more of the end task perfectly. Joan told everyone that she wasn't just funny, she was tough and smart too. He raised more than $500,000, because she won and competed with her daughter Melissa on the show. She got a lot of new friends. Behind the scenes though, things were not always easy. Joel Samuth, Joan's old boss, sued her for $2 million in 2010, saying she lied about him going missing in her documentary A Piece of Work. He also wanted extra commission money because he said he was the one who saved her job. Fought back hard. She told the courts that Billy wasn't due anything, and that they would take care of it. The case showed how bad relationships can get in show business when money and fame are involved. In 2014, Joan had one of the saddest times of her later years. She finally went back to The Tonight Show after almost 30 years. That was in 1986, when her boss Johnny Carson felt betrayed when she started her own show without telling him. This led to her being banned. The ban stayed in place even after Carson died, but Jimmy Fallon was glad to see her again. It felt like she had finally come full circle, even though she was going to die soon. Like always, she joked without fear, which made even Fallon squirm a little. Everyone was shocked when Joan died on September 4, 2014. She went in for an easy surgery on her throat because her voice was bothering her, which was normal for someone who made a living singing. Things went very badly wrong during the endoscope, though. Her throat swelled up and blocked her mouth. For too long her brain did not get enough oxygen. Even though she was taken to Mount Sinai Hospital right away, the damage was already done. After a week, her family made the very sad choice to turn off her life support. The mistakes made at Yorkville endoscopy were shocking when the police looked into it. The staff took pictures of Joan without her permission, while she was unconscious. They did things that she hadn't agreed to. They didn't notice that her vital signs were going down. Doctors who weren't meant to be there were even let in. Everything went wrong one after another. It was too late when someone called 911. Melissa Rivers was not going to give up. What happened was so shocking and wrong that she sued the center and the doctors in 2015. In the case they said a lot of bad things happened that day, like how they treated Joan like a photo op instead of a patient. In 2016, the doctor had the case closed. They admitted fault, but the terms of the deal were kept secret. Melissa said her main goal was to make sure that no one else went through what she did.